Chapter 5. Dear Wayne, you are moving along a grove. The one caved into the world for you. The morning was golden. The roads were as gray and smooth as the skin of sea-born creatures. At the crossroads, you were blindsided. You were as if blind, and an immense force came at you from one side. As you stepped forward unaware, it came and knocked you out of your furrow and into another, plowed you up and over, put you in another place, elsewhere, where I don't want to tell you what happened. I want to tell you how it felt. When I was 12, my little brother got hit by a car. He was 7. We were crossing a road together, just the two of us. This was allowed. This was our every weekday. We would walk together from our house in Pikesville to school. St. Anthony's was only 8 blocks away, the lower, middle, and upper schools adjacent. We lived in a part of the country where roads are named for the trees long ago planted along them. Elm Hollow, Deep Willow, Cedar. There was barely any traffic but for slow passing cars driven by neighbors we knew. Neighbors who waved through the windshield, lifting their thermoses to their smiles. It was safe to walk to school, alone, together, holding hands. Wayne loved school. He was fawn brown, a gangly kid, the heat of growing still burning up all his fat. He did his homework with the perseverance of someone licking a scoop of ice cream before it melts. But I was in the spell, too old enough when it was embarrassing to embrace my love of learning. And mornings are rough on me, always have been, always will be. Everything wakes up too quickly around me, and my body struggles to catch up. Wayne was fine though, happy even to be alive in the waking day. It was spring, warm and bright, the air choked with flowers and furry seeds. We walked quietly along the sidewalk, under the trees, through dappled apple-green light. Wayne paused, still holding my hand, as he leaned over to pluck a spindly stalk with his other hand. He raised it to his nose to sniff it, then held it to the light and spun it between his fingers to helicopter it, all to show me how miserably boring I was in the mornings. He tried again. You see that squirrel? No. Right there, see. I ignored him. He was always trying to trick me with vanishing things. Gone now anyway, he mumbled. He was sliding the stalk up his sleeve, practicing. I glanced at the top of his brown head, at the loose heart shape of his widow's peak. I dreamt about Grandma Lou last night, he said. She was riding on a dinosaur. Course Mom broke the car down again. I chuckled and sighed and let go of his hand. I hated to hear him claim our grandmother's love, even if it was only in a dream. Anyhow, we didn't have to always hold hands. In the winter, our wool gloves squeaked against each other. In the summer, Wayne's palm was sticky with breakfast. Today, I simply felt more dear to myself than anyone else. I was morning tender, and I wanted to protect myself from Grandma Lou's blatant preference for Wayne. So I dropped his hand and walked ahead. Just a couple of steps, my stride gaining length as we began to cross the road. Wayne called my name in a question. Sometimes he accidentally called me Mom, but that day he said my name. I turned my head. He was crouching down, picking up his fallen weed stalk. This softened me. So, though I kept moving towards the other cab, I extended my hand back for him to grab, like I was a relay runner about to take off, awaiting the baton. Wayne grinned and sprang from his crouch and jogged steps to catch up, his hand reaching for mine. As our fingers touched, I glimpsed a dark moving form, a whirling mass. Sunlight hit glass and spun inside it. Wayne flew sideways, his fingertips slipping from mine like sand. The engine rolled, the brakes yelped. Somehow, after those sounds, I heard the impact, the thud of the car ramming into my brother, the sound of my brother as he hit the road, of my backpack as it slid off my shoulders. More thuds came as the car veered up and over the curb and onto the sidewalk in front of me. I ran around it, my thighs skimming its side. It was warm and throbbing like skin, my hands pushing off the back window to speed me on my way. It still took forever to get to him. He had flown so far. When I reached him, he was on the ground in an obscene position, his legs scissored under him. I knelt beside him so fast I found bruises on my knees later. His lips and eyes were open but unspeaking, unseeing. Blood was inching out beneath his head. I laid my hand on his chest and felt his heart slamming up at my palm. Behind me, I heard a car door open and the flat slaps of someone running in shoes not built for running. At first, I did not understand what this white man was shouting. He was wearing a blue windbreaker, a yellow button down under it, and brown pants. All his clothes were too tight as he squatted by Wayne's body. Gaps flared between the buttons of his shirt, and I saw a rip in his crotch seam. Finally, the man's words punctured the swell of refusal in my ears. He was telling me not to touch Wayne. I obediently lifted my hand away from his chest. "Shit," the man said through gritted teeth. "We gotta get help." I looked around. Apart from his silver sedan and the 4 stop signs standing guard, there was no one around, nothing resembling help. The man wiped his hand across his forehead. "Fuck," he said near tears. I was just turning the radio up. I looked down. Wayne's face was already swelling, his arm twitching once, twice. The man rose to standing. "We gotta get an ambulance." He walked toward a house set back from the road, tall and white with a green door. He cupped his hands to his mouth, shouting across the lawn at windows blanked out by sunlight. "Hello, help!" He ran up to the house. "Somebody call an ambulance." He banged on the green door with his fist. The sun glared on the back of my neck. The man gave up and tried the house next door. Why was no one home? Why were there no other cars? The man's sedan was still settling, buzzing and ticking in its angled patch up on the curb. Steam issued from his hood with a hiss. Wayne's backpack was somehow under it. The man was returning now, cursing, looking around wildly. "We live here," I managed to say it down the road. "What's that? You do? Is anybody home?" The man knelt heavily on the other side of Wayne. He exhaled to steel himself, then bent over to hover his ear above my brother's open mouth. The man winced at what he heard or didn't hear. "Your mom?" I nodded. My father had left for work, but my mother might not yet be at her studio. The man glanced back at the sedan, then looked at me. "All right, listen, I don't think it's drivable. I'll wait here with him. You go and get your mom. Tell her to call 911. I shook my head. I wasn't leaving my brother. I didn't even have to say it. The man sighed. "Okay, let's carry him home and call from there." I nodded, even though this contravened his earlier instruction not to touch Wayne. The man seemed to realize this too, because he took a deep breath before maneuvering his hand under Wayne's head. Blood flashed red on the cuff of the man's windbreaker, then darkened as it seeped in. He grimaced as he put his arm under Wayne's knee, gathering his legs like a bundle. "All right, here we go." There was a terrible sound when Wayne's head unstuck from the road. The man stood heavily, staggering a little. It's close, I nodded, staring. Wayne's head hung back over the man's forearm. The side of Wayne's face was raw and pink, like a cat's foot. His mouth was still open but did not appear to be the source of the wet, popping sounds coming from him. His eyes seemed to widen, but that might have been the light, the angle before they closed. I was trembling. I pointed the way home and we rushed down the road in that direction. I walked quickly, gingerly. Though my arms were empty, I'd left our backpacks where they'd fallen. There was no traffic, no other cars around. The light through which we moved glowed green from the watchful trees. I desperately needed the bathroom. The man swung his head from left to right in a kind of trance. He was huffing. Sweat flowed down his face, soaking the collar of his yellow shirt and blue jacket. I thought about his sweat mixing with Wayne's blood and how awful that would be. The man saw me looking. He is not heavy. He licked his upper lip. Just awkward to carry. How far? Down there. I pointed again. That's when Wayne's head began rolling around in a strange way, as unreasonable way, my father would have said. Wayne's eyes were thin white slits between purpling lips. His face was puffed up, blurring his features, and the pink crannies in his cheek began to fill with darker blood. He looked like he was shaking, but that might have been the man's staggered low. Still feeling the taboo on touching Wayne, I reached out and instead grasped his white sneaker, which had a splotch on it, the color of Grandma Lou's favorite nail polish. I squeezed. The leather gave, and as if through the perforations on top of his sneaker, I felt Wayne sting into me. Something left him, feeling each of my fingers like straws. Those 5 currents merging in my palm and shooting up my wrist into my forearm, picking up momentum as they navigated the corners of my elbow and armpit and finally flooded my chest. Wayne's limbs jumped as wide as they could in the cage of the man's arms. The man flinched but kept walking, then subsided, swept clean. My insides felt filled to bursting. I let go of my brother's shoe and ran dashing up the driveway to the front door of our home. I glanced behind me once. The man was crossing the front yard, coming toward the house with Wayne's body in his arms. I took my keys out of my pocket and unlocked the door, leaving it open. I raced inside the house, climbing the stairs, 2, 3 at a time, heading for the bathroom I shared with Wayne. I sat down so fast I almost slid off the toilet seat, wrangling my jeans and underwear down just in time. As I released my bladder, I panted with the effort of having run up the stairs. Wayne's cargo shorts from yesterday were on the tile floor, seams flagrantly exposed, his underwear still locked loosely inside them. The soil of his body smeared faintly there. The blow dryer was laying bouting on the floor too, its head with the longest pout imaginable, its cord curling out of the socket like a pig's tail or one of my own locks. I listened for people downstairs, for the man to come in, for my mother to scream, my father to shout help into the phone, but the sound of my piece plumishing down was too loud. I felt it knock up inside me, then a vaulting, heaving thing. My back arched forward with the motion of a dolphin. No time to work. In one motion, I turned and knelt, then puked into the toilet, blinking tears from the force of it. I stared down at the lacy mess of frosted flakes. Pee dribbled down my leg. Another bout of vomit flung out of me, neon yellow in the toilet bowl. I coughed and waited. One more jug, but nothing came out. I blew my nose into some tissue. I cleaned myself up, changed my underwear, and pulled my jeans back. When I went downstairs, there was no one home. Where was my mother? Where was Wayne? I walked into the kitchen, sunlight angling across the counters. I glanced at the microwave. Still morning. The two legs shifting from left to right to become three. A little dance at the knees. The front door was still open, and it moaned as a brief wind blew. I closed it and went to the kitchen to pour myself a glass of water. I sat at the kitchen table and sipped, feeling sorry for myself. Maybe they had all left for the hospital. My father driving fast but controlled. My mother in the back crying and whispering to Wayne. Laid out, his head on her lap, his dead face bleeding into her dress. The man in the passenger seat, sweating, explaining, not wearing his seatbelt. I could still feel the scratch of acid at the back of my tongue from puking. I wasn't hungry. My inside felt full up. The phone rang. A solid stream of beeps like a robot rolling its R's. I jumped to my feet and snatched the receiver from its cradle so fast that it fell. It hit the floor and spun on its back. Its cord looping. As I picked it up, I heard my mother's voice blurting sharply from it. See, is that you? The school called. You guys didn't sign in today. What? I put the receiver to my ear. You'd better have an explanation for this when I get home. See, Mom, where are you? Where's your brother? Let me talk to him. What? I looked at the monocolored numbers on the microwave. I blinked, amazed. I moved into the living room where I could see through the front window. A shadow lamp sat in the middle of the gilded glass, appeared at the bluish crumple. It was the man's windbreaker. My mother was still barking in my ear. I said, where is your brother? Through the window, the afternoon sky looked dark and bright at once, like the chapel window at St. Anthony's, aglow with ancient color. Where is Wayne C? Where is Wayne?